What's going on, guys? Doc Danny here. I want to thank you so much for listening to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. One of the most common questions that I get is, how did you start a practice in a gym? And because of that, I've put together a course called the Gym PT Blueprint, which shows you exactly how to start, run, and grow a successful practice in a gym. If you're a new PT, if you're a new grad, if you're a PT that's just started a practice in the gym, you're not making more than $12,000 a month yet, this course is perfect for you. It'll teach you how to set it up correctly. It'll teach you how to market yourself correctly, how to sell correctly, how to actually build a true business and not just a little side business that maybe doesn't take you anywhere and change you and your family's life long term. So if you're interested in this model of a practice, guys, head to drdannymate.com/products and you can take a look at the Gym PT Blueprint and everything that goes into it at that location. Thanks so much for listening.
So here's the question. How do physical therapists like us, who don't want to see 30 patients a day, who don't want to work home health, and have real student loans, create a career and life for ourselves that we've always dreamed about? This is the question, and this podcast is the answer. My name's Danny Mate, and welcome to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Doc Danny here for the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. And today's Thursday, so it's a short episode. We're going to answer a question today, actually, that was sent to me via email. And it has to do with naming your practice. So I'll give you a quick kind of backstory on why I named my practice what I did. So the name of our practice is Athletes Potential. It's very vague, right? Like you don't really know what that means. It's so vague. You're kind of like wondering, is this a gym? Is this? You probably don't think physical therapy practice as the first thing that comes to mind, which is sort of what I was going for, honestly. So I had spent some time at a place called Athletes Performance Institute, which is now called Exos. And I really liked my time out there. It's the first time I saw this kind of interplay between providers and strength coaches, and both of them kind of understanding the gray area in between. And so I really enjoyed learning from those guys. I spent about a week out there in the Phoenix facility they have. And the other thing that I took part of the name of our practice from was a YouTube show that Kelly Starrett used to do called Genetic Potential. He did it with Brian McKenzie, and they basically just interviewed these really top performers in different sports and talked about training methodology. And I thought it was great. It only, I think, maybe had like 5 or 6 guests. They have some little hedges up there in the gym. I mean, I thought it was awesome, but it just didn't continue. You probably watch it still on YouTube. But so that's how I named our practice, because I was like, hey, I like Athletes Potential. I really like this idea of genetic potential. Like, what is your genetic potential? Are you achieving your genetic potential? And that's where I came up with Athletes Potential. So I guess in a way it was probably a really positive thing that I named our practice something that was as vague as it is, because we can frankly do whatever we want with that. So if I decide eventually, I want to add a gym to this, it's under the umbrella of Athletes Potential. That could absolutely be a gym. Physical therapy is obviously there. If you want to do digital stuff, it's there. It's so it's very vague on purpose. Now, the question I got was, in regards to, do you feel like you need to have physical therapy in the name of your practice, name of your company, to see people as a physical therapist? And obviously I would say no, because at this point, our name doesn't say physical therapy in it at all, and we see a lot of people for physical therapy. So I think there's some mistakes that you can make with naming your practice in certain ways. So the biggest problem that I see is that people put their own name into their practice. And I've had this conversation kind of offline with Jared Carter about this, because his practice is named Carter Physiotherapy, and that's kind of like a generic name. I guess it's not quite as problematic sometimes, but if it was like shamanic physical therapy or something like really obscure and hard to say, I don't think it's the best idea. And there's definitely people out there that teach business concepts, that have practices that have their name in it. But the issue really comes down to when you may eventually go to sell your business. Let's say you get to the point where you have something that you could sell and your name is in that. It's hard to separate you from your practice, right? So some of the biggest practices in the country have nothing to do with somebody's name. A big one that comes to mind in Chicago is Athletico. Athletico is very vague. It's not somebody's name. It's not, Bill, whatever, Peters Physical Therapy. There's like 100 locations they have. Benchmark Physical Therapy down here in Atlanta and all over the Southeast. PT Solutions is a big one in this area. These are all really big providers, provider networks that don't have somebody's name in it. And I think it's very easy, very common as a new practitioner just to say, oh, I'm just going to name this me and I'm proud of this. And that's great. But eventually you want to get to a point where it's not all about you. You want people to call your office and not even know who you are. All they know is they heard a really good, thing about this other PT that you have. Their friend saw so-and-so and said, you have to work with, whoever. Like we get people to call our office now, and Jake and Jackie are other PTs, and we're so excited when we hear, my friend told me that I need to work with Jackie. And I remember our office manager told me that they had somebody had called to work, had been recommended to work with Jackie, and for a reason I had like a last minute cancellation or something where they could get me in, like I could get this person the next day on my schedule, which usually books out 2 to 3 weeks, and the person was like, no, I don't know who that is. I'm just going to wait. And as a business owner, that was one of the best things that I've ever heard in terms of our employees doing the right things, building their own reputation, and not being all predicated on us. The other thing that I would tell you is you have to look at the target audience that you're trying to appeal to. So, for instance, one of the guys that I have in my mastermind coaching program, we kind of chatted about the name of his practice, and he was doing a lot of kind of hybrid, kind of gray area in between PT and strength and conditioning stuff. So he changed it from his practice name from physical therapy at the end to performance. So that was the only change he made, one word. Or I guess 2 words to 1 word, but took physical therapy out of it. And when he did that, he actually saw a pretty noticeable increase in the amount of interest in working with him. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that he took himself out of the conversation of, oh, this is just a physical therapy practice. I've been to physical therapy before. They're going to give me a bunch of bands to just do some bullshit exercises versus, oh, this is some really high level training. This guy just happens to have a doctoral degree, which is awesome, and understands how to resolve my pain, but also understands how to progress and get me to where I want to be, which is healthy, losing weight, feeling better, looking better, all those positive things that people really, really want. So in some cases, you not even having physical therapy in the name of your practice can actually be a benefit to you. So think about that. If you're trying to go very much mainstream, work with a Medicare population, and in network in particular, you probably want to have physical therapy in the name of your practice. If you're trying to maybe do something similar to what we've done, where you're talking satellite clinic, small office in a gym or something to that effect, I don't think you need physical therapy one bit in the name of your practice to be successful. I've seen it on multiple occasions at this point, and it's going to happen and continue to happen as people start opening more practices like this. So, in many cases, it's beneficial. So think about that when you name your practice. Leave your name out of it. It's not worth it. One day you'll look back and you'll still think to yourself, damn, I wish I had named this something else. It didn't have my name in it. It's just so hard to break away from, I want to see the guy whose name is on the door. Right? Like, man, it's so hard as a single practitioner when you go to bring that first person on. If your name is on the building, like that person's going to want to see you. like, why am I not seeing this person? Who's this? It's hard to break that. So, keep that in mind as you go to name your practice, or maybe potentially you're so young you may even rebrand and see how that works. If you're kind of flatlining and you're not seeing the progress that you want. So thanks so much for the question, guys. As always, if you have a question, I would love to answer it for you. The easiest way, honestly, at this point is just shoot me an email. It's just danny@athletespotential.com, the name of our practice. I think eventually we'll probably start answering these in a group format. Probably do like Facebook Live or something like that once every couple of weeks and answer these questions. Because I get a lot of questions, a lot of emails. I appreciate the emails you guys send me. I hope that when I answer you, it's beneficial and that you're getting some help there and making good decisions business wise. But like always, I appreciate you listening. If you haven't done so yet, I would love it if you'd head over to iTunes and leave us a review. 5 stars would be awesome. If it's a 1-star review, just don't do it and yell at me, in your closet about whatever shitty content that I'm producing. But if you like what I'm doing, head over to iTunes, leave me an honest review. I actually read these, and 5 stars would be great. It really does help us get this information in front of more people like yourself. iTunes weighs that significantly. So, guys, thanks so much for listening, and talk to you next time.